Hi, do you enjoy interactive author discussions? Well, welcome to Story Behind the Story with Reese Ryan, where readers and authors connect. I'm Reese Ryan, author of sexy, emotional, grown folks romantic fiction featuring characters navigating career crisis and family drama and finding love. And today, my guest is Rebekah Weatherspoon, and I'm super excited about finally talking to her. I've been wanting to talk to her for like 2 years at least. So I'm excited to have her on the show today. We're going to talk about, um, you know, everything that she's doing, some of her past contemporary romance as well as her YA that recently released. We're going to get to know her a little bit, find out what prompted her to move into writing her first YA, and talk about how she got started writing romantic fiction, period. And so we're going to get into all of that in just a moment. And we are glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're new here, I would love it if you would subscribe and don't forget to like and share as well so that other readers can find the show. And this is a very interactive show, so we welcome your questions and comments, and we will get to them as we can. And if you are joining us from Facebook tonight, welcome. In order to really be a part of the discussion so we can see who you are, if you go to the bottom of the description on Facebook, you can give StreamYard permission to see your Facebook profile and your name so that we'll know who we're talking to. Otherwise, we'll just see Facebook user when you post your comments. Don't forget to do that, to give StreamYard permission to see who you are if you have not done so in the past. And this is actually the final show of this season. It'll start back up again in the fall, like in September. But this is the final show of this season. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And be sure after this show to take your time and check out some of the shows from the past 3 seasons of Story Behind the Story with Reese Ryan. So, and also in addition to watching the past shows on YouTube, you can also listen to it as a podcast wherever you prefer to get your podcasts, whether it's Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, or what have you. So, with all of that in mind, I think we've covered everything just about. I am excited to chat with Rebekah Weatherspoon. So I'm going to bring her on. Hey there, Rebekah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So glad to talk to you. So, and again, I promise I will try not to be a weird fan most of the time. So, okay, so let's start off by talking a little bit about telling us a little bit about, for somebody who maybe isn't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you write.
Sure. I'm Rebekah. Hi. Hello to everyone out there in internet land. I'm currently residing in California with my adorable dog. I've been writing romance for almost 13 years now. I got started in the world of fan fiction, which I think actually a lot of people do.
Nice.
And my fan fiction friends were just loading me up with good romances to read, and then were encouraging me to write my own romances. And I did. And I guess you could say the rest is history from there.
That is really cool. And I have heard a lot of authors, more and more authors say that they got their start in fan fiction. As a matter of fact, DL White, who is here, got her start in fan fiction. I believe it was NSYNC fan fiction. So that is something I actually have starting to hear from a lot of folks. So that's interesting. So, and I didn't realize you had been writing that long too. You said almost 13 years, because it'll be almost 10 years for me.
Yeah, I think the time has flown for sure. I think my first book came out in 2011, but I wrote it obviously before that. So yeah, time is marching on, but here we are.
I know, it's weird. It's weird. It doesn't seem like it's been almost a decade for me. So like, yeah, I can just imagine. So, okay. So let's talk about first, before we get into talking about your current release or your most recent release. you have a variety of options in your backlist. You got a little something for everybody, right? So, from the Cowboys of California to Beards and Bondage and the Lucian series, and then you have the Audible exclusive standalone novella, A Walk in the Park, which I started listening to and really love. And so, for someone who is new to you, which books in your backlist would you recommend for them as an
Sure.
entry point?
Yeah. I have a hard time clearly just picking a lane, which is fine. Uh, so if you like paranormal, you could start with my vampire sorority books. Better Off Red is the first book in that series, and that's a queer vampire series that's kind of set on a college campus. I like to call it Greek meets True Blood. So picture that. So if you like vampires, you can start there. If you just like really light and fluffy contemporary romance, I would definitely start with either RAFE or the Fit trilogy. Those are very, very light and fluffy. If you like contemporary but dark and extremely erotic, you should start with Haven, which is the first in the Beards and Bondage series. That's a BDSM romantic suspense, so there's a lot going on there. And of course, if you like cowboys, you can start with A Cowboy to Remember. I'll get you somewhere.
I love that. You're leaving no stones unturned, right? And I've read many of those books, and they are awesome. And Rafe is definitely one of my favorites, period, in terms of contemporary romance. So I love that that you have a different place for all kinds of folks to be introduced to you. So, but you have really compelling stories, and you have such an engaging voice as an author. And your stories offer so much representation in terms of race, class, body type, sexual orientation. So, what sparked your interest to now write young adult romance, and why is it important for you to have that same level of representation in that space?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I wanted to write young adult for a while. I pitched a young adult back in like 2016, but the timing was off and it just didn't work out. So I've been sitting on like, I don't know, 5 or 6 young adult ideas for a while. And luckily my agent's like awesome, and her and I sat down and I told her what I wanted to do, and she's really smart, so she kind of like watches what's going on, which any good agent should do. So in 2020, she was like, okay, like, what do you want to do next? And so we bounced some ideas around, and she was like, I think we can do YA rom-com now if you want to try it. And I was like, yeah. I was like, let's go for it. So I wrote the proposal about like, 2 kind of awkward teens, like, falling for each other. There's parts of the book that are based on stuff that happened to me when I was in high school. So I just I talked to my friends first. I called them up and I was like, remember that thing that happened? Are you cool if I put that in a book? And they were like, yeah. I made sure I like touched bases with people. They were totally on board. So we pitched it, and we were lucky enough to sell it at auction, and it was kind of off to the races from there.
Oh, that is awesome. That is really awesome. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your YA romance, Her Good Side, and what inspired the premise for the story.
Sure, and I'll answer the second half of your question while I'm doing that. It's basically about 2 teens, Bethany and Jacob. They're both 16. Bethany is really good at basketball. She comes from like a basketball dynasty family. Her moms both played in the WNBA. One of her mom now works for like basically ESPN. The other mom is a skills coach for the Lakers. Very loving family. Like, she's very supported, but she hates playing basketball. So she's a little afraid to like tell her moms that she doesn't want to play. She wants to learn how to basically be a chef. She's a little amateur chef, but she doesn't know how to break that news to her parents. In her personal life, she is not so lucky with the boys. She has a reputation. Her nickname at school is Crybaby Bethany. I won't spoil it for anybody, but she has a reputation of being a little bit prude and afraid of boys. And homecoming is around the corner, and she cannot find a date because nobody wants to take Crybaby Bethany to the dance. We jump over to Jacob, who over the summer has had his glow up. He had his growth spurt, and now he is a hot commodity. But as a lot of us know, sometimes you change physically, and you are still the same person on the inside. So
Yeah.
Jacob is still very shy, very quiet, getting a lot of attention. But once he gets attention from girls, he keeps getting dumped. So I don't want to spoil how it comes about, but they end up being each other's date for homecoming, and then they decide to hatch a fake dating plan where they help each other out, like improve their reputations at school. Jacob wants to prove that he can like keep a girlfriend. Bethany wants to prove that like she can get a boyfriend. And you know how high school is when it went, like sometimes you get the rumor mill going in a good way and it really works out in your benefit. So they hatch a scheme to fake date, but of course, when you fake date, sometimes it turns into real love. So, and as far as inclusion in it, I mean, I have my nephews are Korean. You know, my niece and nephew are biracial, Korean and Black, and I wanted to like my niece especially. You know, she's only 4, but I wanted to write something for her, like when she gets older, that I can be like, I was thinking about you when I wrote this. I was thinking about you and your cousins, and it was fun to write it, and then even just be able to do the acknowledgments and be like, this is for all the kids now. You know, we finally have a next generation in our family, and even my nephew Squirt, I call him Noah, and his brother Lucas. I asked them about like the cover and everything, and Lucas, you know, he's 15 and he was like, oh, I want to know about the sneakers. I want to know what sneakers they're wearing on the cover. And it was really cool to just like bond with them over that and talk to them about it. So yeah, it was nice to write something for them. Also, everyone in my family except for me, I mean, Bethany and I have this in common. Everyone in my family except for me is in education. And they're all in middle and high school education. And for years, everyone in my family is like, can you write something that I can finally share with my students? So finally, I've written something that my parents and my brother and like my sister and stuff, they can share with the kids that they actually teach. So
I love that. I love that you had all of your multicultural family in mind when writing this and wanted to have something that um, gives representation to them. So, what is it that you hope that young adult readers will walk away from Jacob and Bethany's story with?
I mean, for all of my books, I just want people to be like entertained. You know, I think every writer kind of has some sort of objective, and some people do write with the idea of like educating or whatever, you know, thrilling, whatever the plan is. I just want people to read my books and be entertained. And I feel like right now, you know, everything is awful. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like sometimes we forget that when everything is awful, it's also awful for young people. You know, it's young people have to absorb all of the hostility and everything, and they don't have the experience or the language to even like talk about it, you know, in a certain way. So if I can provide something where they can like just shut their brain off for a little while and like be happy and then, you know, feel rejuvenated and go back out and like kind of face their corner of this big scary world, I feel like I've done my job.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we came on air about, you know, how crappy things are in a lot of ways. So you make a really good point, because I mean, when you're in that kind of when you're at that age, it's like everything feels like a disaster anyway. Everything feels like it's huge and it's the end of the world anyway. And then you have all of these things that are going on right now. So I love this idea of making it something that's just entertaining where you can turn their brain off a little bit, and then also, you know, if you can give people a way to kind of identify and feel seen. That's one of the things, even for adults, that I love writing. Why is set to make other people feel seen. So I love that. So what are some of the we have, of course, yours, and do you have a copy of your book there?
I do. 1 second.
Okay, yeah. Let's see, let's see that cover because it's such a cute cover. I love it.
Hold on.
I love it.
Oh, there's a sticker on that one. Hold on 1 second. I don't know why I didn't have it on my desk.
I do that all the time where like I don't think about it.
You're just throwing stuff all over the place.
I love that cover. That's why I want a paperback copy. I mean, I want to have a physical copy because
She's gorgeous.
It is, and I want a copy. So I'm just gonna wait until I can grab my physical copy. And I'm trying not to get it from the Zon. I'm trying to get it from a local bookstore instead. So love that. So you have that amazing book, and for just like you were thinking about your cousins or nieces and nephews or whatever, and wanted to have something for them that offer representation.
Yeah.
What are some other books that you would recommend to parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles who might want to get books that offer representation for their teenagers or young adults?
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, I'll give you. I did grab those. But there's luckily, I think in the last like 5 or 6 years, YA has gotten actually really good with representation, and it's lovely to see. There's tons to choose from. I'll give you 3 that I have with me, but To All the Boys by Jenny Han was one that we were thinking about when I was working on it. Dumpling, of course, by Julie Murphy was another one we were thinking about. One that really actually influenced me that I absolutely loved was There's Something About Sweetie by Sandhya Menon. This book is so good, like so good. Plus size heroine. She's a track star, but there's a lot of frustration with the mom wanting her to lose weight. Her parents also wanting her to date. And it's such a sweet book. And I think the conversations, I didn't talk a lot about my heroine's weight in the sense that she's fat and she's fine with it. And her moms are also fine with it. So there's a couple conversations about like training for sports and stuff like that. But I feel like in Sonia's book, she really talks about what it's like when you have a parent who has fat phobic ideals and how difficult it is when they don't accept you as you are. So I thought that book handled it like really, really well.
And what's the title again on that one?
Sure. There's Something About Sweetie.
There's something about Sweetie. Okay.
The book previous to this is When Dimple Met Rishi. I think a lot of people remember When Dimple Met Rishi. So this is the second book there.
Okay. I do remember that title.
Yeah. Throwback by Maureen Gu. Maureen gets a shout out actually in my book. I made her the mom of one of the girls. Maureen, to me, she writes I think like when you think about Clueless, and she did a little nod to Clueless here. Maureen writes books that I feel like how Clueless made me feel when I watched that movie. All of her heroines have this just like really great spunky teen vibe, and they're not like perfect. Like they get into shenanigans, they get into it with their parents, like they do dumb teen stuff. But all of her books are really fun. Throwback is actually a time travel story where a teenager goes back in time and runs into her mom when her mom was in high school. It's just so clever. It's so fun. I again, like, talking about writing for young people, I think for Maureen, it's really cool that as we were getting older, she was able to like look back at herself as a teenager and have that like really beautiful like retrospective moment. So definitely check out Throwback. And then Christina Forrest, she writes really, really great Black rom-coms. Xiaolin Kai is one of her most recent YA. And this is also kind of it's not time travel, but it's like there's like time jumps. So these two are working together over a summer, and it's like just angsty and fun and all of that. So I highly recommend. She also has an adult one out called The Neighbor Favor that just came out as well. And her writing.
Oh yes. Love that kind of thing.
Her writing is like really smooth. Like her writing is really smooth, and I really like that. So definitely give Christina Forrest a read.
I love that. And I actually have one that I
Oh,
started
yep.
reading
I have the
and
damn book.
absolutely love, and it's the Davenports. And like when I saw this cover at first, like I knew it was historical, but I didn't realize it was considered YA as well. And
Yeah,
I started reading it, and I haven't because I'm on constant deadlines and
sure.
haven't finished it. But it was so good. I love this book so much. And then
Um,
I
I
also
almost grabbed the Davenports off my shelf, but I was like, that hit the Times list for like 8 weeks, so let me grab a couple other ones that didn't necessarily.
yeah, I love it. I love it. And then I also found an amazing list by Brown Babies Books.
Oh, okay.
That's on their list and has, and a lot of them are ones that maybe more familiar to people like Love Radio
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But Chaos Theory by Nick Stone. So
yeah.
there's a whole list there, and I'm gonna drop that list actually in the chat, but also I also put it into the description of the show before the show started,
Yeah.
so that if people want to look at that list, it has a lengthy list
Yeah.
of recommendations of like Nicole Yoon and stuff like that,
Yeah.
books because books that
Yeah. Nicola's great. Nicola also writes really great diverse romance. She's fantastic.
and I love this fact that like as I'm looking at this page, I don't want to share my screen like you should see me in a crown and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You see all these amazing different diverse cultures for this YA romance, and is just so important for the same reason that we as adults want to have
Yeah.
representation.
Yeah, absolutely.
In our stories is it's amazing and wonderful to
Yeah.
see books that are giving young adults a representation as well.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, okay, so that neighbor favor, okay, book has been like calling my name for long. And so every time I look, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grab that, and I just never get around to it. Not to mention the fact that I have a never-ending TBR, and of course, I'm always
Me too.
buying books. I'm constantly buying books. But that's another one too, where the cover is really cute. I'm like, I kind of would rather have a physical copy, and I've been kind of veering more toward physical books in the last year or two.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe it's since the pandemic. I don't know, but for a long time, I was only reading ebooks, and now I'm starting to really, really love the physical books. But of course, I'm running out of shelf space
Yeah.
for them. So,
That's all.
so tell us then what is coming up next for you in terms of what you'll be writing. Are you going to be writing more YA books? Are there more books in this series?
Yes. So we sold 2 books in this series. So I'm working on the second book right now. When I'm finished with that, I'm going to try and write the 3rd book in the Loose End series, so the follow-up to Zenny and Rafe. And then after that, it'll be Christmas, and then I'll have to decide what I might have something else for another publisher that is technically a follow-up to something, but I can't say yet. And then in the new year, I got to figure out what 2024 is going to look like. But that's what we got so far.
Yeah.
You get it,
Yeah, I get it because that's what I need to be doing is thinking about what 2024 is going to look like. So, yeah. Right now, I'm just like trying to put one foot in front of the other and take care of the things that I have to take care of right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay. So I'm going to ask you a question that most authors probably hate. And
Sure.
that is, if you were to, do you have a favorite book of yours that you've written? Or like, for me, like, I can't say one, but I can say like, there's maybe like these 3 or 4 books that are kind of my favorite. So are there favorite books of yours that you've written?
I mean, it's like picking a child, isn't it? I don't know. I don't, because I think like I have books that I love, but like the process of writing them was just horrible. So I'm like, I love that book, but writing that was medieval torture. So you have like, you have a different, you know what I mean?
Aren't those the books that always end up being like the ones that you end up loving the most?
Yeah.
Like the ones that take you through it.
Yeah. I remember when I wrote Tamed, which is the second book in the Fit trilogy, I was like, this was easy. This book is so good, blah, blah. And like, nobody likes that book. It just everyone like ignores that book. They're like, yeah, it was all right. And I was like, that was the best thing I've ever written. It wasn't, but I thought it was at the time. I was like, this is like my masterpiece, and it was not. No, I mean, I really like what I was able to achieve with Haven, for sure. That was a
great book.
That I watch a lot of true crime, so that I got to do like doing like kind of like a murder plot with a romance. That was like very satisfying. Her Good Side, like now that it's done, I'm like, oh man, I really love this book. Writing it was very hard, but I'm very happy with the finished product. When I listened to the audiobook, both of the audio narrators were just like, they were so good. And I think they brought the book to life in a way that made me really happy, because it was like I could hear it in a different way. And both the narrators just brought like really beautiful, sweet emotion to it. So that made me really happy. That might be my favorite audio. I'm sure people have a lot of opinions about my audiobooks, but Her Good Side, I think, is my favorite audiobook right now.
Narrators definitely make or break, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I've gotten a lot of feelings about my audiobook for Zenny, and I'm like, you win some, you lose some, dude.
I've got a couple like that.
Yeah, you're like, what do you want me to do, man? And then I think on the adult side right now, still, I feel like A Thorn in the Saddle might be one of my favorite books. RAFE was fun, but I feel like A Thorn in the Saddle was like really satisfying to write. The contract was over. I was like, they can't stop me now. I'm doing it. It was the last book. I said, screw it. I wrote what I wanted to write. I really like Jesse. I really like his heroine, Lily Grace. I had a really fun time writing their banter. Lily Grace gives him the business at like she tries to steal his dog. It's great. I had a really fun time writing that story. And Jesse's one of my favorite heroes, and I was really happy to like get that book out. So yeah, that's my top 3, I guess you could say.
I like that. And then Dia White says that I loved all of the Fit trilogy.
I really appreciate it. I really do. I felt like Tam got left out in the cold, but I'm glad to hear that you liked it.
That is awesome. So the other thing I wanted to ask about was how the opportunity came up for A Walk in the Park, the Audible original.
Sure.
And I love to hear like how you came up with the premise for that as well, because I think it's so cute and so fun, and I started listening to it already, and the narrators, I think, are great. So
yeah, the only reason that Her Good Side like edged that out as my favorite audiobook was the guy who did Jacob's voice. I was really nervous about writing Jacob's point of view for Her Good Side, just because I'm at this point in my life so far removed from the mind of a teenage boy. So I was just nervous that it wouldn't come across the way that I wanted it to come across. And the guy Daniel, who narrated it, he was so sweet, but he did all of this like voice inflection that really got at like what I was trying to portray, and I was like, oh, he really nailed this. But the narrators for A Walk in the Park did a really good job, like a really, really good job. That one was, I can't remember. But I have this dog that I was posting on social media at the time, like quite a bit. I don't post her as much. She has her own Instagram account though. I don't post her as much as I was posting her at the time. But when someone in publishing gets a puppy, it's exciting for a little while. So I had this dog, and then I thought that somebody at Amazon had seen the dog and was like, oh, I want her to like talk about this dog. That's not what happened. Apparently they just cold emailed my agent, I guess, because I think she had read, the editor had read RAFE, maybe, I think. And they wanted me to do something for them. And they were like, we wanted to like be something about like dogs or a dog park or whatever. And I was like, oh, have they been like following my dog? And they were like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had an idea to write a story that was set at a dog park, but I personally had my fill of dog parks, and then the pandemic happened and our dog park closed. Also, for people who are listening, I am not a huge fan of small talk. It's not where I reside, right? Small talk is not where I'm at. If we're chatting and we click on something, cool, but I'm not just gonna talk to you to be talking to you. Silence is golden. I found when I was taking my dog to the dog park that I was getting sucked into a lot of conversations that I did not want to be having. And I just wanted to stand there and watch my dog. I didn't want to be chatting with everyone about everything. So me and the dog park fell out. So I came up with another idea. Thanks to my dog's trainer, who's a great guy. And I even asked him, I was like, can I put you in this book? He was like, yeah. About two people who decide to co-parent a shelter dog. And then Audible, they liked the idea and they were like, let's do it. And we did it. So.
I'm with you. I just think it's such a cute premise, such a different premise. The whole thing, and it's that whole description in the beginning of the chaos of everybody coming to pick up these dogs and 5 people coming to get the same dog, and they try to figure out who's going to get the dog. So I absolutely love that. So I can't wait to finish listening to that. That's my treat for myself when I finish this book, this never-ending book that I'm working on.
Yeah, I asked them, I was like, how sexy can I make it? And they were like, oh, you can make it sexy. And I was like, okay. And so they're doing it, and they didn't change anything. They weren't like, oh, let's change the light. I was like, okay. So it's a pretty light story. It's a rom-com for sure, but the sexy times are, they're doing the sexy sex.
I love it. Okay. All right. So we covered that. So there's more books coming out in the YA. You told us some of the other books that you hope to do. So let me ask you this. Sure. So you've done a little bit of everything. You've done paranormal. You've got cowboys. You've got the BDSM. You've got all this stuff. So is there a genre or something that you want to do or that you've been thinking about that you have yet to do?
Yeah, so I want to do a little sci-fi, but sci-fi my way, I guess you could say. Sci-fi more grounded in reality. I don't know if that makes sense, but kind of how Jordan Peele does it. I want to do more a little more sci-fi. I definitely want to go back to the paranormal. I miss writing paranormal a lot. I do want to try my hand at historical one of these days. Miss Bev's been just suck it up and do it. I need to need to bite the bullet and go for it.
I'm right there with you on that.
I know we need to get it together. I think.
I know we do. We do.
Must be really
let Miss Bev down.
It's we gotta jump in here somewhere. So I do want to do that. And then I just want to write. I want to write more cowboys. I love writing small town. I absolutely love writing small town. So I want to write more small town. I want to write more cowboys. A little bit of paranormal.
Nice. I have found that that's something I actually never thought I would write, and definitely didn't think that I would particularly enjoy is writing cowboys. But this whole thing about writing Black cowboys, I don't know, something about it. It's just it opens up to all this history and it's kind of fascinating. And I actually am starting to wanting to do that more. So now I got to figure out how to stick that in there, because every author has a rolling list of all these different ideas and stuff, right? That we have, and so I don't have room for more ideas, and yet now I'm I want to write Black cowboys. And historical.
There's nothing better than a black man with a horse. So, it's.
All right. So tell readers where they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So I'm on Twitter for now, as long as Twitter exists.
For now.
You don't have to worry about any handles. If you look for Rebekah Weatherspoon spelled the way it's spelled, I'm the only Rebekah Weatherspoon on the planet who spells their name this way, so I'm not hard to find. I'm on Instagram and I'm on TikTok, and those are the only social media platforms I'm dealing with, and I refuse to join any new ones. So you'll be able to find me there. And then you also, if you're just wondering what updates there are, you can just go to my website, RebekahWeatherspoon.com, or sign up for my newsletter. I will not be inundating you with newsletters all the time. I send it out like quarterly, so I will not be bombing your inbox. Don't worry. And yeah, if you're looking for me, Instagram is probably the best place to find me, and then Twitter.
I love it. I love it. And one of the things we did not say
Sure.
earlier, is that, we talked about why representation is important for young adults. But one of the things I've actually been really surprised by is how popular YA books have become with adults.
Sure.
There are so a lot of adults are reading YA. And then also my brain is slow today. But when you mentioned some of the books you mentioned To All the Boys I've Loved Before and Dumpling are both movies on Netflix.
Yes.
So for somebody who, they want to watch a movie with their kid, there you go. Yeah. And then that gives you representation also, To All the Boys I Loved Before, it's got the representation, but also some of the books that we mentioned, in addition to a representation as far as, ethnically or whatever, you have plus size, characters, which your book does as well. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I didn't mention Talia Hibbard's YA either. What is it? Something suspiciously cute or something like that. Because my brain is like a sieve right now, so I can't remember. But yeah, so Talia Hibbard also has a debut YA book. So lots of diverse YA books out there to choose from, whether you're an adult or somebody who's 53 like me, or or a young adult. So
I mean, I think what's great about it is, like, I remember when I started teaching, I used to teach, and I had to pick out books for my kids, in my classroom. And I remember we read this book called The Girl Who Owns a City. And it's a middle grade book. It's short. It's a middle grade book. It's like a post-apocalyptic book about like a group of kids. And that was one of the best books I've ever read, like, period. Not like children's book. It was like one of the best books I've ever read.
Wow.
And so I think sometimes, like, I think you can read for all kinds of reasons, right? But I think reading middle grade and young adult as an adult too is an interesting way also just like humanize young people. I think people who are really good at writing it are really good at humanizing kids in a way that I think is really important for us all to remember, and to remember what it was like to be that age. I think about, like, the Babysitters Club, why that was so important to so many people. And speaking of stuff that's diverse, the 80s and 90s were choppy in a lot of ways, but the Babysitters Club was a series that had a canon Asian girl in it. It had a canon Black girl in it. They were watching diverse groups of kids. The Black girl and the Asian girl, they had siblings. It wasn't just, it wasn't just them. We got to meet, like, Claudia's whole family and her grandmother and all this stuff. And that's important, even if it's just a series about babysitting. You know what I mean? It's like, you get to see an actual diverse group of girls on Long Island navigating, like, school and boys and divorce and new step siblings and diabetes. That was the first series where a lot of kids learned about, like, what diabetes type 1 was for the first time. And I feel like as an adult, sometimes it's good to kind of, like, shock your brain back to, like, oh, right, this is what it was like, or this is what was important to me, or this is maybe what kids are going through now. Or even, like, if you have kids or nieces or nephews or whatever, read stuff so you can, like, buy stuff for them. You know what I mean? Like, I love reading stuff and then being like, oh man, I can't wait to, like, give this to my baby cousins, because I know they're going to really enjoy it. So lots of reason to read stuff.
Yeah. I love the points you just made there, because it's like what you said earlier about the world is hard enough right now, and you imagine how difficult it is when you don't have the tools and experience to be able to process these things and talk about them. So I love that. Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about reading, period. People who read more, whether it's not in romance readers or whatever, they tend to be more empathetic. because
Yeah.
you're reading experiences that are not your own. You're not
Yeah.
in this insular world where you only look at or think about people who look like you or
Yeah.
who had similar experiences. So, I always think of that in terms of race and economic situation. But you make a good point in terms of us as adults looking at what it's like for
Yeah.
people who are for young adults
Yeah.
in this
I
age.
also think it's an interesting way too to like find out what you don't like and find out like what perspectives that you are not interested in. Sometimes you pick up a book and you're like, woo, me and this author do not see eye to eye on a lot of aspects of humanity. And sometimes that's kind of important too. Sometimes it's every once in a while, it's a good idea to pick up a book and then have your world jolted and be like, you know what, maybe I'm not going to finish this book, but it's a good reminder to like know that there's people out there who have very different views than I do, and I should probably keep that in mind, especially when I'm going to the ballot box.
Yeah, it definitely can give you a wider world view. And like you said, just a lot of these YA authors like you and Talia and all these folks that we've already named are just kick-ass authors, period. So, pretty much no matter what you're writing, it's gonna be good. Well, look at you writing paranormal and all this, everything, whatever
Yeah,
everything you've written that I have read thus far, I've absolutely loved. And so it's the same way for a lot of these YA books. So definitely check them out.
yeah.
So, uh, again, tell people your website, and it is also in the description. I put your Amazon page as well as your website page, and then from your website, I would imagine people can easily find your social media and stuff.
Yes, just
So,
RebekahWeatherspoon.com. And again, if you have the correct spelling of my name, even if you don't, it'll probably autocorrect. But if you Google me, you'll find me everywhere on the internet. No one, I guess I'm the only one spelling my name this way, so that's a good thing.
well, look, you are unique, and that's a good thing.
Try to be one of a kind. Try to be one of a kind.
So thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it, and take care. And thank you for making the time to come back after you were
Absolutely.
before. I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me back, and thank you everyone for the kind comments. I really appreciate it.
Take care. And that was Rebekah Weatherspoon, and I love that she gave us so many different entry points. So if you are a person who's interested in YA, or you have people in your life, whether it's your neighbors, kids, your niece, nephews, whatever, we talked about a bunch of YA books, starting with Her Good Side by Rebekah Weatherspoon that you can get for them, but also she just has so many others. So, like I said, RAFE is a personal favorite of mine. I loved Haven, what she talked about earlier, and A Walk in the Park I'm reading right now and loving. So many options there. So again, thank you for joining us. This is the final show of this season. I will start again in early September. I have a bunch of amazing people lined up, so make sure you definitely subscribe so you'll know when those shows are coming. And also, if you're not on my mailing list, my new email list, the link to that is also in the description of the show so that you'll know what's happening. And sometimes I, will do a poll and ask people who they want to see on the show and things like that, as well as giveaways and all kinds of fun things like that. So be sure to join my mailing list as well. And again, you can check out past shows that I've had with other folks, or if you came into this show late, you can check it out in its entirety, the replay, once the show is done, or you can check the shows out on Spotify and places like that. So I thank you again for joining us. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the show. And if you love author chats, also check out the Brown Book series by Shay Baby. The link for her YouTube channel is in my favorites if you're watching me on YouTube. So, and also if you're watching from Facebook and you are commenting and we're not acknowledging your comments, for some reason today I'm not seeing any Facebook comments. So if you are on Facebook and you're commenting and I'm not seeing you, I'm so sorry. Because because I'm only seeing the YouTube um, conversations today. So we weren't ignoring you. We just didn't see you. So sorry about that. But I look forward to seeing you when the season starts up again in the fall. And thank you again for joining us. Happy reading.